Hello, little fish. Happy Monday. I don't know how on earth it could possibly be Monday again already, but here we are, week 2 of the second half of the summer term, and here to spend a short amount of time together, thinking deeply together. Wasn't Friday incredible? The hard work that you put into your learning during the course of last week, the amazing products that you investigated and designed and made and then persuaded your friends to buy. My goodness, wasn't the little fish fate wonderful? Such a lovely opportunity to come together as a school family and be able to share in each other's learning. I just want to say a really big well done. Well done to you, little fish, but also well done to your teachers and support staff in your classrooms for making some really very special things happen. It's Monday again already, and this week I thought I'd film my assembly here in the library where Mrs. Whittaker has yet again worked her wonderful magic. Mrs. Whittaker has put together a collection of books to mark a really significant week. This week is Refugee Week, and behind me we have got the most amazing collection of books. Now, during the course of last week, I disappeared on a number of occasions, and I was found down here in the library flicking through some of these beautiful books that have been written for children like you to understand a little bit more about what it means to be a refugee. And little fish, I have agonised all week about which book I should share with you. I highly recommend you coming to visit the library at some point this week to share in some of these beautiful books. Now, where to begin? The book I was going to share with you today is this one. It's called Wisp, A Story of Hope. And this is a story that is set around a young refugee and their experiences. Now, I was planning on sharing this with you today, and then I felt that this book probably is best for children in year 4, 5 and 6 because it's got some really meaningful, meaty things to get your teeth stuck into. So I thought, no, I'm going to leave that, but this book is going to be here if you would like to have a look at it. The next book I was going to share with you, I disappeared. The next book I was going to share with you is this. This is called My Name Is Not Refugee, and it's written by a lady called Kate Milner. And this is a book that gives you a unique insight into what it might be like to be a refugee and how many people don't want to be defined as a refugee because, of course, they're people within their own right, with all their own unique gifts and talents, and they don't want to be known as a refugee by itself. So I decided not to share that one with you, but it's here if you'd like to read it. For older children, this is a fantastic book. The boy at the back of the class, I know our children in Penguin's class have enjoyed reading this over the last term or so. A really super book following a young man who had arrived in England and found himself getting used to life in a very, very different place. The children in year 6 have been reading a book called, I want to say Boy 87, but I might have the number wrong. But again, really similar themes. Some of you have also been reading Ballet Shoes from Syria, another great book that gives you a really good insight into what life is like as a refugee. So I decided not to choose any of those books, but there are beautiful, beautiful books here for you to come and explore and enjoy. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Mrs. Whittaker because every time I come to this library space, there is a different collection of books that really inspire me and make me want to settle down with a book. But now I'm going to share with you the book that I wanted to use today. Now, the reason I chose this book, Ali's Story, is because it's based on a real life account of a journey of a young man called Ali who comes from Afghanistan. And this book is brilliant because it gives us a very real insight into what some of those experiences might have been like. So I hope you will enjoy listening to this story. My name is Ali. This is the story of my journey from Afghanistan. My family and I lived in Afghanistan. There were mountains there and lots of dust. Most people weren't rich and they didn't have houses. Instead, they lived in tents. The illustrations in this book are beautiful. If you look closely, you can see the tents in there, in amongst the sandy, dusty environment. There was always so much fighting going on, but the war started to get worse. There were lots of helicopters in the sky and tanks started to bomb our towns and cities. Sometimes I would look out of the window and see the fighting going on. It made me very scared, but also really sad. The war got so bad that my grandma decided that we should all pack our bags and go to a safer place in Europe. And this is where the word refuge comes from. Refugee. To seek refuge means to find a place of safety if you are in a war-torn country, sometimes in countries that have been affected by natural disasters, so an earthquake or a tsunami or a volcano. People have no choice but to seek refuge and become refugees by travelling to other countries as a place of safety. So Ali's grandmother decided that they should pack their bags and leave. When we got to the airport, the officials let my grandma in, then me. But they turned my mum and dad away. They said that my parents did not have passports, and so they had to go back home. We just put ourselves in Ali's position for a moment. We can really understand why Ali's face might have looked the way it did. My grandma and I got on the plane. We thought my mum and dad were on another plane following on behind us. When we arrived in the new country, we waited for the next plane, but my parents weren't on it. My grandma and I were safe in this strange new country, but we didn't know what had happened to my mum and dad. We felt alone and afraid. Sometimes I dreamt that it was my mum who picked me up from school and who walked me home. It made me sad to think that my parents were back in Afghanistan among all the war and the fighting. I dreamt about them all the time and I cried every night. It was like the bones in my body were broken. Sometimes I felt angry, but most of the time I felt really sad. I learnt lots of new things at school, but it was really frustrating that I couldn't speak English. The only word I knew was yes. Sometimes I got embarrassed when I didn't know the word for something. At the beginning, I sat in the corner of the playground watching the other kids play. Sometimes people would ask me to play with them, and soon I had a group of friends that I played football with at school. I really love drawing, and everyone was amazed by my pictures. Every day I would draw a special picture to show people at school. Sometimes it would be a picture of my whole family, or just my mum and dad, me, or a superhero, because I really like superheroes. 4.5 years passed, and then one day we had a phone call. My cousin said that he'd seen my dad in the mosque praying. Then he handed the phone to my mum and dad, and I talked to them for the first time in years. It made me feel so happy. My biggest wish is that my mum and dad would come to this country. It feels like it's going to happen sometimes soon, but I get upset when I think about them and wish they could come right now. I can't wait for that day. What a lovely story, and such a good insight into the story of just one young person impacted by the need to leave their country to find safety elsewhere. The theme of Refugee Week this year is "We cannot walk alone." Isn't that an incredible theme? Especially bearing in mind our assembly theme at the moment, which is around collaborating to make the world a better place to be. I find it amazing that the theme for Refugee Week this year is "We cannot walk alone." What a brilliant and powerful message for us to have about our school and the impact that we can have on those around us. Now, Ali's story is up here and it will be left here in the library for you to be able to come and enjoy. There's another book, just one last one that I wanted to draw your attention to, which I'd actually love to take home with me to look at more closely, but I won't do so just yet. It's this one. It's called Stormy Seas, and this is a collection of books, a collection of stories in one book around young boat refugees. And what I love about this book is that they're really based on real life people. Okay, so you can actually see photos of that person, and then you can see information about the journey that they had to take, because not all the journeys are in the same direction, and some of their reflections on what that time was like, and a timeline of their experiences. A really lovely book to get your teeth stuck into, and you can dip in and out of that, but you don't need to read it all in one sitting. So that might be one that some of you might like to explore a bit further. While I'm thinking about that, the books in this part of our library very often have written inside the front cover a little message. I'm just going to show you. It'd be typical that that one wasn't one of those books. Oh yes, here we go. I was going to say, here's another one that isn't. Can you see there? Look really closely. There it says in it, Mrs. Whittaker. Mrs. Whittaker is the most generous person I know with books. She loves to share the books that she's read. But what I really do ask is, we're so happy for you to come and use these books and to read them and enjoy them, but please do make sure that they are returned to that library space so that Mrs. Whittaker can put them back into her personal collection when we've moved on with our theme. Okay, children, we're going to draw our assembly to a close by praying together. Father God, open my eyes to the world around me. Enable me to be inspired by the positive actions of others. Help me to see ways to work in collaboration with those around me to make the world a better place to be. Amen. Children, I hope you have a fabulous start to